What's up, everyone? Darkscream here, and I knew this day was going to come soon. I just didn't expect it to be this soon, but, well, it happened. Stan Lee, the father of Marvel Comics, helped co-created some of their more iconic characters like Spider-Man and the X-Men. He's finally passed away. Um, and it's going to suck from this point forward, at least on the Marvel side of things. Now, before I go on, already I have seen on my Facebook feed, I've seen in my little private Discord chat, that people are sharing tweets and rants about how certain little scumfucks on the internet are sullying this guy's name, calling him shit he isn't, like a racist or a fucking sexist bigot. And I would provide you these sources, but I'm not gonna fucking do it. You wanna know why? Because you shouldn't give these fuckers attention. You shouldn't share this information. You should let them talk in their fucking echo chamber, their empty ass echo chamber, and ignore them. Okay? I don't like giving attention to SJWs. This is why I wasn't fond of doing that fucking rant on Severin Kagura, but I had to anyways, because people knew I was a fan of the franchise and they wanted my thoughts. But like what Big Al said, Big Al originally had plans to do a rant about that, but he backed out, and that was a smart decision of him. And you know what? Same case. Let's all remember the good things about Stan Lee. Let's not focus on these little asshole attention whores. Let's focus on what he did for comic books, what he did to people's childhoods, and even onward. What he did for partially responsible for a very big movie cinematic universe. He helped create these characters that got adapted into film, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe was created. And it wouldn't be created without the help of Stan Lee. Now, I will confess, I am not much of a comic book reader. I've given it a try a couple of times, but I couldn't stay devoted to it. However, when I was a kid, I did grow up watching a lot of Marvel cartoons that were adapted in the 90s. They had X-Men, they had Spider-Man, they also had The Incredible Hulk, Fantastic Four, Iron Man. Apparently they had the Silver Surfer, but I never actually got around to watching it when I was a kid. But I did watch the former shows. And I did like them. Because, they were superheroes. I was a kid at the time, and, I liked them despite the flaws I see nowadays as an adult. And growing up being a big Street Fighter Capcom fighting game fan, at the arcades, I would see Marvel Superheroes, which was a superhero fighting game that was loosely based off of the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. And I loved the hell out of it. And I don't know how many years later, it might have just been a year later, maybe a couple months later, I stumble onto X-Men vs. Street Fighter, which is like my favorite Marvel vs. Capcom crossover fighting game to date. Most people love to talk about some of the later Marvel vs. Capcom fighting games, MVCs 1, 2, and 3, but no, fuck that. Just strictly X-Men and strictly Street Fighter. I love it that way. And then, of course, in the early 2000s, you had the X-Men films, you had the Spider-Man Sam Raimi films, and then you had some occasional Marvel films here and there that varied in quality. It wasn't until, in the late 2000s, we got Iron Man that kickstarted the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I stick to those films, well, up until this year, ironically enough. I have yet to see Black Panther, I've yet to see Ant-Man Wasp, but I did see Infinity Gauntlet, and I loved the hell out of that. Being a gamer, there were a fuck ton of Marvel-based video games since the Super NES days that I actually really enjoyed. I was a fan of Maximum Carnage and its sequel, Separation Anxiety. And then, of course, there were a bunch of other Spider-Man games, including the one that came out this year, which had a Stan Lee cameo in it, and was a really good one. But one of my favorite action RPGs was X-Men Legends for the PlayStation 2. I had a lot of fun with that game. It also had a multiplayer feature, so I actually played it a couple of times with my friends. We had a lot of fun just playing as Cyclops, Wolverine, Beast, and just fighting the Brotherhood and some other mutants and fighting in the astral realm with Professor Xavier, who I believe was still voiced by Patrick Stewart in that game. It was a whole lot of fun. If you get the chance, I say you pick that game up. But I think the last cameo I saw him in, and this is going to come off as a shock to people, but I actually did see the Venom movie. And while I admit it's a bad film, I didn't really entirely hated it. But yeah, much to my surprise, I didn't think he was gonna appear in that film either because I've heard he had health issues at the beginning of the year. But no, he also makes a cameo at the end of the Venom movie as well, which I thought was pretty nice. And I've heard one of my friends say, "Oh man, I'm tired of all these Stan Lee cameos," and I said, "You know what? Let him appear in as many of his own things as he wants, or stuff that he doesn't even have any involvement in, but still part of Marvel, like Guardians of the Galaxy, because the guy doesn't seem to have much time left." Let him appear as many things as he wants. It's always fun to see him when he shows up, even if it is for a couple of seconds. But now, well, I did hear that later films they did shoot some cameos, so but I don't know how true that is. We won't know until we see it, but it's gonna suck that he's not gonna be around anymore. I've heard from some comic book YouTubers that Marvel has not been doing so well. Um, but I'm not going to go into details about that. You want to know what's going on? Like, check out Micah Curtis, check out Diversity in Comics. They'll give you more details on what the hell's going on with that side when it comes to industry things. But man, it's every time I see this guy on the internet, whenever he's like taking photos with somebody, and there were a lot of celebrities I follow on Facebook sharing like their photos with him. He always seemed like a very nice dude. I also think he said at one point his favorite DC comic book character was Lobo. Uh, that's nice because Lobo's a pretty fun, wacky character in the DC universe from what I've seen. So, yeah, Stan Lee has passed away. And I'm just here to let people know that you should remember the good things about him, the stuff that he's done, that he continued to do till the very end. Um, Hide the negatives, accentuate the positives. If you have to mourn for him, go right ahead. If you have to fucking cry and sob it all out, you go ahead and do that. But you just gotta remember that he was a great man. He did wonderful things for the comic book industry. Hopefully, he will be forever remembered as the legend he deserves to be. Well, that's all I got. Hopefully, I'll have a more traditional video out when I can. And with that, this is Darkscream signing out. Excelsior.